Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's Financial Security for All Community of Practice webinar. Thank you for joining us. You can see more of the webinars and find out more about the community on connectextension.org. And I would like to give a little shout out to our Zoom producer, Andrea Price, and to Program Associate Megan Wells for helping with today's webinar. Megan and Andrea are both with the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture Cooperative Extension Service. Throughout the webinar today, just a little housekeeping details. You can put questions in the chat or in the Q&A or the chat. If you put them in the chat, I'll be sure that our presenters circle back around to responding to those. There will be some opportunities for you to participate and engage with our presenters in the chat today. And then at the end of the webinar, we have a really short little survey. We'll be putting the link in the chat and would like for you to take just a couple of minutes to complete that for us. Well, we're really excited to be talking about PowerPay today. So 30 years of helping debtors become savers. It was created by Utah State University in 1993, and it's provided personalized debt repayment plans. It's used by extension by states all across the country. It's also used by the military and by several large corporations, so it's widely used. So today we're going to learn how this long-standing history of great success, how this program is one of the best free tools for consumers, and discover how we can use PowerPay, how we can incorporate it into our financial education programs. Really happy to have our presenters from Utah State University Extension today. Melanie Jewkes is an extension professor, and Vincenza Vicari-Bentley is an accredited financial counselor and program coordinator for the Empowering Financial Wellness Program, and she's also studying to become a certified financial planner. Please join me in welcoming them to our Financial Security for All Community of Practice webinar.
Thanks, Laura. We are happy to be here today. We're already, I guess it depends on your school calendar or your vacation schedule, but we're at least a third of the way through summer. And before we jump into PowerPay and celebrating what has become of PowerPay in the last 30 years, I'd love to just get us into vacation mode for a minute. Maybe some of you have some plans next week. Royal Caribbean just announced an all-around-the-world cruise that visits all 7 continents and lasts almost a full year. Doesn't that sound great? That'd be kind of fun. So I'm curious, drop in chat. What do you think the starting price for a ticket aboard is? So this is a Royal Caribbean cruise visiting all 7 continents. Stick in chat what you think that might be, ballpark. 35,000, 61,000, 78,000, closer to 100. What do you think that would be? Oh, some chat, some questions. All 7 continents. You're on board for like a month. That's a long time to be on a cruise, but just think all that you could see. Okay, it looks like the closest answer we've gotten so far is, okay, I think Paula Stark, you're the closest. It is $61,000 for a ticket. Isn't that amazing? Just think of what you could do with that money and all that you could see on a month-long cruise. That's so great. And yeah, it would be all-inclusive like most cruises are, right? More than 150 destinations in 65 countries. Maybe this is a goal you want to add to your list. Okay, on another just fun note, between Memorial Day and Labor Day, how many hot dogs do you think Americans eat? And the number is so astounding. I'm going to give you a little multiple choice, but you can go ahead and just stick in chat what you think. But is it 700 billion? Is it 700 million? To me, those are like the same number, but they're not, obviously. 352 million? 500 billion? What do you think? How big of a billion or how big of a million? 0 in my house. Same with me. In fact, the other day, some of my family, they're like, hey, we're going to the city festival. We think we'll do hot dogs. Can you bring your little stove thing? And I was like, my kids don't eat hot dogs. And they were like, what? My kids don't eat hot dogs. They were shocked. 5 billion, 3 billion, 0. Okay, the answer actually is 700 billion. That was with the B, according to the National Hot Dog and Sausage Council. Actually, and on the 4th of July alone, it's 150 million hot dogs. Isn't that amazing? It's so crazy. Yikes and gross. I agree. I like to think not in hot dogs, but in dollars for sure, right? Like, anyway. Okay, now let's jump back to PowerPay. How familiar are you with PowerPay? Is this your first time hearing about it? Have you heard about it but never used it? Or are you familiar with it and you've used it either for yourself or your clients? First time, great. For those first timers, we will be sharing with you what PowerPay is, briefly introducing you to it and celebrating its birthday. And then for those of you who have never heard it or are familiar with it, we will be giving you 5 tips to help you use PowerPay to enhance debt payoff goals of consumers, participants, and clients. So, okay, I'm seeing a mix. Familiar, have used it, haven't, and just now learning about it. So that's great. We're happy to be here with you today to introduce you to it. So many of you are probably aware of some of these debt numbers in America. So the average American is carrying almost $6,000. It's like 5,910 is the most updated number we have in credit card debt alone, which is actually up 13% from 2021. We're carrying a lot of debt. As a whole, Americans are spending 9.6 of their disposable income on debt repayments, and inflation has kind of made that worse. It's been a major player in helping debt to cost more to us, with interest rates rising, which means interest rates of our loans are higher and more expensive. And of course, with just needing to, with the cost of inflation, more people are turning to debt to help get by. And debt default is also getting up to an all-time high. Student loans, average total debt total, 101,000 was the Q3 2022 average American carrying that burden, 101 in consumer debt. And that was up nearly 6% from the year prior. In addition, we've been up and down on this roller coaster of student loans and what's happening, and do we have to pay, do we not, all this stuff. Putting that aside, 58% of student loans are carried by women. That's the most recent data I've seen from 2023. But previous ones I've seen go up to 2/3 of student loans are carried by women. And regardless of what exactly that is, if it's 58 or 67%, women earn on average 26% less than men do. And that means it's going to take them on average about 2 years longer to pay off student loans than men. We could go on and on the debt story and how it's hitting specific groups that we might be reaching and targeting and trying to help. And it's a little bit of a different story for everybody. But in general, most Americans are carrying debt and paying for debt that they probably don't need to, especially with the help of PowerPay. So let's talk about PowerPay a little bit. It was created 30 years ago. We are celebrating 30-year birthday this year by Dean Miner, who is a Utah State University Extension faculty member based in Utah County, in response to a young adult asking him for help to get out of debt. Very specifically, somebody came up to him and said, I have so much debt and so many different pieces. What's the best way to get out? And as he started asking people in Utah State University who were teaching finance, he realized, in his mind, he's like, isn't there just a program that you can plop things into? And he created it since he couldn't find one. So it was originally created on a SuperCalc spreadsheet and sold on floppy disks. And I always laugh that some of you may know what a SuperCalc spreadsheet is. I'm too young for that, but I do remember floppy disks. And even my first couple years of college, I used those little 3x3 hard disks. So it was originally sold on disks, then you had to upload the program to your computer. And then it moved to CDs and then to a website in 2005. That's when I became familiar with it, was in that CD era. And then the website, it was updated with new features in 2018. And basically, it is just a web app that calculates debt payoff timelines. We have a refresh, new design of the website coming any day, or maybe any week or any month, but really soon. And we're super excited. We'll be showcasing that at AFCPE at a booth and at NEA FCS with a presentation. So come check us out, or just keep watching and you'll see that happen soon. So as Laura mentioned, it is used widely by extension professionals in multiple states. It's used by the military and large corporations such as Fannie Mae, America Saves, and NeighborWorks Training Institute. And it's received national recognition as an innovative tool. We're super proud to be the creators and hosts of PowerPay at USU. I want to share with you this awesome success story. I know a lot of you are from Extension, and we know the power of a really great success story to add to our data on the effectiveness of programs in Extension. And this was somebody who attended some online courses and webinars that we provided and started implementing the PowerPay tool. So this person said, I'm proud to say that because of the financial wellness classes course and PowerPay tool, we were able to budget better to purchase a vehicle that we can actually afford, have savings, and play money. In a year, they were able to knock down $10,000 in unsecured debt. They created a Christmas fund and were able to buy presents for every member of their family and birthday presents. They said, in the past, we've been so broke that we never bought presents for anyone. They opened several different savings accounts for things like upcoming birthdays and car registration and family members' wedding and a vacation. They were able to actually have play money to go on trips, whereas in the past they couldn't go unless they got into debt. And they have saved money to do fun things. When this person came up to our team, they were nearly in tears because of what they were able to learn and implement, and PowerPay was a huge help for them. It's really an amazing story, and it's not the only one. PowerPay is an awesome tool that can help people achieve their goals quicker too, and we'll show you what that means. So what exactly is this? It helps debtors. It is created with the actual debtor in mind. We're not and obviously if you're familiar with Extension, you realize like we're out there helping to improve lives of people. We're not a bank trying to get you to come get a debt consolidation loan or anything like that. We're really just trying to help people save money by reducing the time they're in debt. It calculates debt payoff. It does the math for you. It provides you these real numbers that help you visualize the debt and the situation and motivate that consumer to pay off. And then with the built-in principles of the snowball and avalanche methods, it can save thousands of dollars and years of payoff time. And how this works is, like I mentioned, using the avalanche or the snowball method. So basically, if you have 3 different debts, you're just making these payments until one debt is done. So in this case, it's going to be the credit card debts. As soon as that payment to these credit cards is done, you will add it to this car loan. And when the car loan is done, you will add what was being paid to the credit cards and what was being paid to the car loan and throw it to this last third, in this case, student loan debt. And it would continue until all the debts that the consumer has put into this program are paid off. And obviously with the basics of, when you're adding more to a principal balance, it reduces the interest charges and will pay it off sooner. So that's the main principle of it. I'm going to turn the time over to Vincenza. She's going to walk us through a very specific example of Shelley.
Okay, so here's Shelley. And Shelley has written down all of her debts, what her current balance is, what are the interest rates that she's paying, and also what is her required minimum monthly payment. So if we add everything up, she owes today a total of $43,500, and she's paying $1,135 every month just to satisfy her minimum payments on her debts. So I'd like to ask all of you, how long do you think it will take Shelley to pay off all of her debt if she continues to make minimum payments? We can talk years, we can talk months, just throw a number out there. How long do you think it'll take her to be debt-free if this is what she does? Okay, we got 15 years, 50 years, 10 plus years, 20 years, forever. Yeah, it can certainly feel that way. Okay, so the person who is closest to it, if you want to, I'll show you here exactly how long it would take Shelley. And it would take her 9 years and a month. And that $43,500 that I showed you on the previous screen, after 9 years and a month, she'll actually will have paid back $58,000 because of that interest that's been compounding during that debt repayment period. So next thing I want to talk to you is how she could drastically reduce her time and save money by using the PowerPay method in the highest, paying the debt back in the order of the highest interest first. So we go from 9 years and 1 month to 3 years and 10 months. And now she saved $7,000 in interest. And again, I want to emphasize that she did not have to come up with any extra payments. You recall Melanie showed you that screen about taking that, once that first debt is paid off, being very intentional and rolling that payment that you were used to making and putting it on the subsequent debt, however you decide to pay your debts back. So I can tell you from personal experience, it is a lot easier for somebody to stick to a 3-year and 10-month plan than it would be to a 9-year and one month plan, because a lot can happen in 9 years, right? Things can come up. You have other financial goals, and being in debt like this could really get in the way of achieving some of those goals. So just right there, we can see how much you can save in time and money without having to come up with any extra payments. Okay, so now we'll talk about how do you get started using PowerPay. So like I showed you on the previous slide, you want to make sure you gather all of the debts. So you're going to choose which one do you want to include in your debt payoff plan. And then it's really important that we know what is that balance today. So getting the most accurate information. Some people aren't sure what their interest rates are. So it's really important that we have accurate information. What is the current interest rate that's being implemented? And then what's the minimum payment? A lot of folks with student loans tend to guess because they haven't been paying them. And so it will throw off the calculations in PowerPay if we don't have accurate numbers. So that's the first step. And then once you create an account, you go to powerpay.org, and I'll show you that in just a second, and you'll create a profile. You can create multiple profiles if you're working with a client and you wanted to look at different scenarios, or you just have a main user account and you have multiple scenarios. There isn't any personally identifiable information that's stored in PowerPay. You can name, you don't put any account numbers, you name your debt, whatever you want to name it. It's just merely adding in numbers. And there's a new feature that was added in 2018 that allows you to clone profiles. So instead of having to re-enter all the information, you could clone a profile and then just tweak that particular profile if you wanted to add or delete debts to it. And then again, just making sure you have all that detailed information, like I explained, because it's like taking a picture, like a screenshot in time. So whatever it is at that moment in time. So making sure we have recent statements, and we just understand what all of the balances, the interest rates, and the minimum payments are. Okay, so this is where you would go to start using PowerPay. It is a free web-based tool. You go to powerpay.org. And that's where you get started to create your debt payoff plan. So that's what it looks like. Okay. So we're going to jump into now just more talking about how it can be used as a tool to incorporate it into your financial education. And this can enhance the consumer's ability to make realistic debt payoff plans. It's seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, wow, if I do this, this is how much money and how much time. And so I'm going to jump into PowerPay to show you the following tips. So we're going to talk about visualizing how long it takes to pay off the debt, consumer motivated payoff options. I'm going to show you the difference between how the payment is allocated between principal and interest. It's going to answer what if questions, and then there's going to be some consumer support for success. So I'm going to go ahead and show you actual profile of what that looks like in PowerPay. Okay, so I've already created a profile. This is Shelly's information that I had referenced earlier. So Shelly's entered all of her debts, all of her information. Here's where you enter the payment, you put in the interest rate, and then right away, when we talk about visualizing the time to pay off debt, once you hit save creditor information, PowerPay will immediately tell you how long will it take to pay off that credit card that has 20% interest. Low balance, but because of that 20% compounded interest, that's what's going to take her the longest. It's going to take her 9 years and a month to pay off. So your client can immediately visualize, how long is it going to take me to get out of debt? And right here, you can see the results. a lot of people know what their payments are and they know what their debts are, but they don't usually look at it comprehensively and say, oh, if I look at all of it together, this is how much I'm going to pay in interest, and this is how long it will take me to get off, to get it paid off. And so here you see immediately results. Oh gosh, if I just continue doing what I'm doing, making minimum payments, it's going to take me 9 years, and look at all that money I'm going to pay in interest. So that can be that first kind of aha moment, like, wow, maybe I need to do something about this, or just a better understanding of what it means to pay interest on your debt. And then we click on payment calendar. And this is the second point I wanted to talk about, is consumer motivated payoff options. So as you can see here, PowerPay will tell you the different ways that you could pay off your debt. And if we hover over the little question mark, it just explains, well, what does it mean to pay high interest first, or perhaps shortest term first? And so immediately, this is where we see how long it will take you to pay off. These are the results without power payments. And then based on the sequence of debt payoff, or in the order you choose to pay off your debt, you'll see the savings here. Sometimes there's a big difference in how much you save if you use one debt payoff sequence versus the other. Sometimes it's not. But the key is, it's the consumer that gets to choose in which order they want to do it. Maybe they want to pay it off in the order that they entered it. Maybe there's a personal family loan that they really just want to get that paid off, irregardless of what the balance is or how much interest they're paying. It's just psychologically, that is more important and more motivating for them to pay off that debt in a particular order. And PowerPay gives you the option to do that. And so the third point that I wanted to share with you here is, if we scroll down, this is sort of, we call it your payment calendar, but this is your plan. This is PowerPay saying, okay, these are the payments that you're making every month based on, Shelley chose to pay it off in the highest interest first. And so what we can do here, if we click on this little icon here, it shows you the payment allocations between how much is going towards principal, that $40 payment, and how much is going towards interest. Again, this could be another moment of motivation. Wow, look how little, such a small amount of my monthly payment is going towards principal, and most of it is going towards interest. So this is something that you could expand on each of the debts that you've entered into PowerPay. And then the third one is, it answers the what if questions as well, because, okay, if I just make minimum payments and I use power payment, this is great. I can be debt free in 3 years and 10 months, but it also can help answer those what if questions. For example, what if I make extra payments? What would that look like? And you can do that in PowerPay. For example, what if I decide, next year to use some of my tax return to go towards my debt, and I'm just going to make a lump sum payment towards my debt? What would that look like? How would that accelerate my timeline and how much I would save in interest? And then there's also a feature in PowerPay that will let you compare, well, is it better for the consumer to do a debt consolidation loan, or is it better for them to follow PowerPay and perhaps have an extra payment or two? And so PowerPay gives you the ability to do actually that comparison, and it's called the debt consolidation tool. And then PowerPay also gives you the option to defer some of your debts. For example, I'm not paying my student loan. A lot of people haven't been paying their student loans, but what is it going to look like when I add that payment back? PowerPay gives you the ability to defer in your creditor information screen. What would that look like when I add back, for example, here, you can defer. You can click on the button here and you can defer it until a specific month and year, and PowerPay won't add that payment until that month and date hits, but you can see or start to prepare, what will it look like in my plan once I do have that student loan payment? And then lastly, the point was consumer support for success. And so, Melanie, did you want to talk about that, or shall we move on to just talking about the keys to using PowerPay, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, real quick before we talk about that, let's actually, because we have time, let's show them what the extra payments look like.
Sure.
And the new design of PowerPay, we're design wise, a lot of these features are going to be the same. It's just going to be encapsulated so it's not so wide on your screen. It'll be in nice little boxes. but the features will be the same. But yeah, let's go ahead while you're here with Shelly. Let's show them what it might look like. If
Okay,
you want
so
to answer
here's
those
the,
what if questions of
yeah,
tax return.
absolutely. So we'd click on here. We're on the creditor information page. So the first page where you're entering all of the debt information, and you click on this button here, it says extra payments. And so you enter the amount. For example, let's say it's $100. And then you would have to put when it starts. There's one little nuance with using PowerPay. You have to put it in the following month. So if we're in the month of June, it won't actually calculate it till July. So we would have to put, if we were planning to start next month, it won't calculate it if you put it in for the current month. And then the year. And then you can either choose whether you do it one time only, if maybe it's that tax return and it's just, or it's annually, like, you know, you're getting something, a windfall or a bonus, and you're going to put something, or semi-annually or quarterly, or maybe monthly. Perhaps Shelly has tightened up her budget and she says, you know what, I have an extra $50 that I know I can dedicate to every month. And you would just click on that here and you would save that payment information. And PowerPay will update your payment plan. And actually I have one that has Shelly with extra payments. And so here we go. If we go down to the payment calendar. Now, Shelly has actually shaved off some time off of her debt payoff. If you recall, we talked about 3 years and 2 months instead of 3 years and 10 months by making Shelly put an extra $150. She tightened up her budget, and that's what she was committing to doing. Now she's saving over $9,000 in interest, and she's going to be debt free, 8 months sooner, which that's a big deal. And then it'll just update that payment calendar. I did want to take a moment too to explain how that power payment works, just to show you here on the payment calendar. So if we go back to PowerPay, the original without any extra payments, here's where the magic happens. So Shelly's been making all of her payments. Remember, we talked about you make your minimum payments, but as soon as one of your debts is close to being paid off or completely paid off, if you recall, if you look here in the month of November of the year 2024, Shelly's making that last payment on her car. And so it only is going to take $542 to really close out that loan and pay it off. So that little extra money from that $600 payment goes to the debt with the highest interest first, because that's what Shelly decided she wanted to do. That's why that payment jumps from $40 to $97.64. It's taking that extra money that's become available, the power payment, and putting it towards the next debt that's in your lineup. And then here, the reason why we have $640 going towards that $40 payment is because that car is completely paid off. So Shelly has freed up $600. And then look, in 3 months, that credit card with 20% interest, it's gone. And now we're focusing on those 3 debts. And then by the time she gets to May of 2025, all she's doing is paying that hospital bill. And that $1,135, if you recall, that was her original minimum monthly payments to satisfy all of her debts. It's all going towards that hospital loan. And that's how PowerPay works. That is the magic of the power payment.
Yeah,
okay, so Melanie,
payment,
yeah.
I was also just going to say, sorry, the payment calendar too, as Vincenza showed earlier, when you expand, it can then show you how to allocate that extra $600. Because you're going to have to make sure, and we'll talk about this in just a moment, but that $600 is applied to the principal balance of the loan, in order to have it applied the same way to save on the interest and stuff. So this calendar would also show consumers how to do that. If they're like, wait, what do I do with the $600? Oh, I don't just send the check to my creditor. I make sure it's applied to principal. Make that happen.
And this payment calendar can be downloaded as an Excel spreadsheet. You can print it as a PDF, and that's something you could hand to a consumer. Or some people love to use Excel and just want to manipulate the data in Excel, and PowerPay gives you the option to do that as well.
Before we jump out of PowerPay, are there any specific questions that we could answer while we're in it before we go back to the presentation? And while somebody might be chiming in with that, I'll just review what Vincenza showed. So the numbers in PowerPay will help consumers visualize that debt payoff, how long it actually takes, and how much of that is on interest, to really see those numbers. These consumer motivated payoff options. I think sometimes a lot of us think, oh yeah, it's $2,000 better to pay it off in 3 years and 10 months if you do the high interest rate. But if I can pay off a couple of loans sooner, and then I only have 2 bills to pay for a couple of years, maybe that just feels better psychologically. So that's great. It gives people the options to really see how they would feel and how they feel managing that debt. So those payoff options there's not really wrong or right way. Sometimes we think it's just the one that saves the most money. And then yes, the payment allocations between principal and interest and how that works. That's a great teaching moment too, to help somebody see you're making a $40 payment on a credit card, but only $6 is actually paying off the balance. That's why it feels like it's going to take forever, right? And I especially love PowerPay to help answer those what if questions. What if I put all of my tax return down on this debt, but I really want to go on a vacation? Okay, what if I look at half for vacation, half on my debt, and I can just sit and play with those and decide, what's great for me? And is it going to feel better to pay off another loan tomorrow or next month, or to go on my vacation? And I can determine that with the help of PowerPay helping me calculate. Okay, there's a couple of questions. Can the creditor say no to principal only payments? That's a really good question. And I'm sure it depends on the loan. If you're just going to send a payment or it's an automatic payment and you're not telling it to allocate. So like, for example, if you pay more on your car loan, most often, unless you specify it's for principal, the extra, they're just prepaying your next month. So that is something that you'd have to look into the creditor, see what their policy is. And it could be even that you'd have to make 2 different payments. You're making the regular minimum payment and then you're sending in a separate payment. That's for principal. Vincenza, do you want to add to that question at all?
Yeah, it really does depend on the creditor or the lender. For example, some people want to pay extra on their mortgage, and some lenders have it where you can just put in a box, this is extra going towards principal. Sometimes they want you to satisfy the monthly payment, and then, like you said, but I just think it's important that the consumer understands any extra payments made. A lot of people like to round up their car payments, like you said. And I found clients that didn't realize that they were just prepaying interest instead of having that extra $20, $30, $40 going towards the actual principal balance of the car loan, which is what essentially will save them money. But they would just say, oh, I'm paid up for 6 months. I don't have to make a car payment, when we would do their budget. And I thought, well, tell me more about that. How did that happen? And then the understanding was they were just prepaying interest, which doesn't help the consumer. So it's just important that you check with your creditor or lender to make sure that those extra payments that's satisfied beyond the minimum payment are applied in the way that helps the consumer the most. I'm sure I know there are loans out there that don't allow you to prepay. There's prepayment penalties, but that really depends on the type of product that you have. So it's just important to be informed and ask the questions so that you know it's being applied appropriately or as you wish.
And of course, PowerPay can always be updated. So if you've got a credit card that the interest rate is going to vary, and you could encourage the clients or the financial counselors can come in and make adjustments. As Vincenza said, it's a snapshot in time. Okay, one question is, what are the new components of the PowerPay? So Vincenza mentioned the ability to open up to see the allocation between principal and interest is an update. The emergency fund feature is an update. What else happened in 2018? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
Cloning profiles.
The cloning of the profiles, which is so nice because then you can clone Shelly and then leave her as she is with that $1,135 monthly payment. And then you could clone it to be like, okay, what if she's adding extra payments? What if she gets a bonus? What if she adds a loan? Those kinds of things. Okay, another question. Do you have data on clients who choose their preferred method or their choice for the preferred method? I don't. And that's a really great idea for a future study, is to see what people decide to do? That's a really great question and a good idea to look into it. And PowerPay itself doesn't save. Like I can see user account emails and when they last logged in, but I can't see like how many profiles I have or how much interest they're going to save or, you know, those kinds of things. So it's we're not keeping data on people, which is great. But yeah, that's a great idea to ask users in the future.
And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier when I was presenting this, but PowerPay will always recommend, it'll always put it in the first line, the one that will save the consumer the most money. In this particular example, it doesn't matter. It just happens to be that the order that it was entered in the order of highest interest first. That's why those numbers are the same. But PowerPay will always recommend the one that saves the consumer the most money. But again, that may not be what works best for the client. But that's why. And then when you go down here, you can actually toggle here, this payment method. You could toggle between what does it look like if I just want to see what it looks like if I go with the lowest balance first and do the snowball method instead of doing highest interest first, which is the avalanche method. So PowerPay, and then it'll just automatically reset it. And so you could play with that feature too, just if you were curious to see.
And some of the updates we have coming are more design. The table we're seeing here will highlight the one that'll save you the most money. The table below will likely show where the first power payment takes place. So they know they need to make a change in their payment allocations. But mostly design. We also have, there is a spending plan currently in here, but we're going to make it more user-friendly where you can delete lines that maybe don't apply to your spending plan, and then the ability to save it. So you can come in every month and just make changes instead of having to enter it every time. So we also, there's other little calculators on here but they're, one of the great ones is just an additional payment. If it's like, hey, I have an additional 150 to add to one loan, if that's just what people want to calculate, is it worth paying an extra 100 on my car loan? Or how much faster would I pay off my loan if I did this? And then there's also some like investment calculators and like some withdrawal calculators that aren't really anything special compared to like what you could find on Investopedia. They're just all inclusive in here to help consumers, make choices and run some numbers with their situation. Okay.
There was another feature that was added, Melanie, that I thought I should point out. This debt obligation total column. Again, this is a visual motivator for the consumer to say, wow, every month that I'm paying, my debt is going down, down, down. And so that is just there to see sort of as a motivator to say, look, on my debt, look where I'll be in 1 year from now or in 6 months from now. And so that was something that was added in the last update in 2018, just to give that consumer another visual as a motivator to say, my debt's going away over time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to share one more thing. We realize that, Vincenza, do you want to stop sharing so I can reshare? Thanks. We realize that PowerPay is a tool to help consumers, but it's not necessarily the be all end all. Some people might be able to jump into PowerPay and start playing with numbers and no big deal. But there's a few things they need to know first, and we all are likely aware of this. And if we can keep encouraging people in any sort of debt payment plan, that these will help, that the money going towards their combined debt payments remain constant. If they suddenly dip below, then they're going to be adding late fees and more interest charges, those kinds of things. And obviously, if that happens, that's life. The PowerPay could just be adjusted. The creditor information could be adjusted to move forward. But to make PowerPay work, if you were to go in today and put in the numbers and you want to stick to Shelley's 3-year, 10-month plan, you would need to make sure that $1,135 is staying the same every month and that Shelley is not adding more debt that, that has stopped being used to do it. And then to understand that baseline of the power payments that we went over with the little graph, but also showing you the tables on how they're applied, and particularly that it is applied to the additional payment, that the additional payment is applied to principal to really stick with that plan. In addition, consumers need a little bit more support sometimes to just get out of debt. It's an excellent tool. And like our amazing success story at the beginning showcased, but it's not the end. Consumers might need more support. So here are some things, some other topics and strategies that you can use to support any debt reduction plan in general. So creating and maintaining a budget so that consumers can stick with that, in Shelley's case, $1,135 a month, and make that consistent and constant. And so they won't add more to debt. So that's an area that we probably likely all do in the finance classes we're teaching. And just again, to highlight the importance of helping people do that, especially in economies that are going up and down and inflation that goes up and down, that it is something to revisit and adjust as needed. Reducing expenses as well and increasing income. What's going to help a consumer stick to this debt management plan? Are they going to need to reduce expenses? Do they need some strategies to increase income in the short term and in the long term to continue to grow their income, to continue to save money and invest and really generate that wealth for themselves? Also, understanding money personalities. We love money habitudes as a tool to do that, to really showcase, why is it you do what you do? And what's a little bit of the psychology behind your spending habits and your saving habits, and how that affects, and it's directly connected, right, to our debt management and our ability to pay off debt within the timeline that we're really hoping for. So understanding those and using that as a tool can really help people to be successful in any debt management plan. These things aren't necessarily incorporated in PowerPay, but if you decide to use PowerPay in your education or with your clients, remember that those things, creating and maintaining budgets, reducing expenses, increasing income, understanding money habitudes or money personalities and your history with money, all of those things will enhance and support somebody on their journey to pay off debt and reach their dreams, like going on the Royal Caribbean cruise around the 7 continents of the world, right? And I think one of the reasons we brought that up too is it is important to keep the dreams in mind. It is a really great motivator to say, hey, remember how you were really wanting to go on that vacation, buy that house, go back to school, send your kids to school. Look, if you're sticking to this debt management plan, Shelley, you could be out of debt in 3 years and 10 months. And you have $1,135 freed up, ready for you to put towards your goals. We didn't show you step by step, but there's also an ability to show how to do an emergency savings account while paying off your debt. And basically that would mean once your power payment opens up, you have a debt paid off, you would start applying that to a savings account. We're encouraging the emergency savings because we see that as a huge tool for helping people stay out of debt. But of course, that applies to any sort of savings account or investment as well. And that's another way that you could tie those things together. Just a quick peek at the new look. I mentioned here that we would be highlighting the methods that would save them the most money and describing a little bit better what is the difference between these PowerPay payoff options. So this is just kind of a peek at what the new design will look at, and just the cleaner tables, a little less open white space that's a little overwhelming sometimes. So we're looking forward to seeing that and opening up for you guys soon. In honor of our 30th anniversary, we have started a new social media account. We're on Facebook and Instagram at PowerPay Debt Free. Feel free to join us, follow along. We'll be sharing success stories with PowerPay as the new PowerPay gets launched. We'll be showing tutorials, maybe hosting some webinars and some Instagram lives, Facebook lives to show people how to do that. If you have any questions from anything from actual nitty gritty of getting into PowerPay to more tips for using this in your classes or with clients, feel free to reach out to me or Vincenza. Our emails are on there. We also included with a copy of the PowerPoint handouts, a couple handouts that you can use that walk you through what is PowerPay, how to use it, and a step-by-step guide of getting started in there if you need a little more of the step-by-step instructions for you. Okay, I think there are some more questions. We will open up for that. How do you encourage people to stop adding debt? Do you recommend they cut out credit cards or stop using them? Great question. I'm going to open that up to those in the audience too. I'd love to hear your creative ideas. I know Vincenza, maybe you can even say, you often said, Vincenza, I've heard say many times that the teacher is available when the student is ready, right? And PowerPay can really be that awesome teacher to show, okay, somebody's motivated. They're seeing $1,135 that is going to be mine to use on whatever I want, including the Royal Caribbean cruise, if I stick to this plan. So that's one great method, but I'd love to hear more. Handing out credit cards. That is definitely something I helped clients do years ago when I was a financial counselor. Recently, I haven't done that as much. And it's maybe a little less effective because, we've got credit cards on our phone now that are super easy. So there's more methods we're going to have to remember to include. Closing credit cards, deleting those from your tap to pay features of phones. But I'd love to hear other ideas that you have.
I can say I always encourage clients to stop using debt. But that's the hard part. It's the behavioral shift. But I really feel it's important to have a spending plan in tandem with a debt payoff plan, because that's going to really help you find or see, number one, see where your money is going. And oftentimes clients don't realize how much of their income is going towards a particular category, for example, going out to eat. And then they're able to see, well, if I cut back on this just a little bit, I can live within my means and I can pay off my debt. So I really think it's super important that part is addressed, and to really, look at what is coming in every month and what is actually going out. Because I've been amazed at how much people don't really know. They know their fixed bills. They can tell me their car payment, their cell phone bill to the penny. But when you ask them what they spend on food, for example, or entertainment, it's usually, a puzzled look on their face. And so I think that's very important when you're trying to get out of debt, is to work with the spending plan. If that's something that, why did you get there in the first place? What got you where you are? And so that would be my, what I would encourage people to do.
I think one of the other things that we see in money management and in all of family and consumer science is sometimes we know that we should maybe eat healthier and move more. We know we should spend less and save more, but for some reason, we just have such a hard time doing what we know we should do. And those strategies for behavior change, so borrowing those strategies from theories of psychology and relying on more than just the knowledge of money management principles, can be the game changer for people. And I think as accredited financial counselors, and I know that Vincenza has that designation as well, that's part of what we study, are those counseling techniques that can help move consumers from the knowledge to the behavior change. Any other questions? Oh, where do I find the handouts? We'll be posting those and sending those to you. We usually link them on the Connect Extension site and send those out to folks. I also wanted to remind everyone that we'll be sending a link. We can go ahead and post the link in the chat, the link for the evaluation survey. If you'd take just a minute to respond to that for us. We'll be editing this video and posting the recording on the Financial Security for All YouTube channel. So thanks to Megan and Andrea for helping us with that. Our next webinar will be August the 23rd on shrinkflation and skipflation. The presenter is Jeanette Bennett from the Federal Reserve. Oh, and responding to the question, yes, PowerPay has a spending plan tool.
I also wanted to share some other idea just really quickly about, sometimes it's an income issue of just not having enough. And so this was my personal issue when I was getting out of debt. And I just got really creative about ways to increase income with selling things. With nowadays, it's a lot easier to do side gigs or side hustles, even from home. Some people have small children and it's not as easy to have to pull in a second income, but there are things that you could do from your computer at home. They don't have to be in the same state where you live. So I just got really creative and sold things I wasn't using, children's toys, gently used clothing, all those things. And once you get that fire and motivation, you'll find that you start to see things differently, and you'll find ways to try to increase that income. And I always remind my clients that, some of these things just have to be temporary. You don't have to, you can let off the gas pedal a little bit when things start to get back under control. And it changed. There's definitely been a behavior change that came along with my journey. And I think that's the success story that you'll hear, is that people really make a concerted effort and start to change and look at how they manage their money differently than they did before. So I hope those are some ideas that you can think about as you try to use PowerPay as a strategic tool to help consumers pay off their debt faster.
Thanks, Vincenza. Yeah, that's very inspiring and creative. So yeah, good tip to look for creative ways to find ways to pay off debt. And selling things is easier than ever with Facebook Marketplace and other apps and opportunities like that. Any other questions for our presenters today? Muriel said great information. So thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. And we hope you can find it useful in your educational methods and as you work with consumers and clients and maybe even yourself.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Again, remember to take a moment to complete the evaluation, and we will see you at the August webinar. Bye.